Are you struggling to find the right professional talent for your project? Are you working with a limited budget?
We are so excited about our next sponsor, Casting Networks. I have personally used Casting Networks to release a number of projects for free to the industry's largest network of professional performers for my commercial work and for my very first short film, Strange Thing.
Creators can manage submissions, schedule auditions, request and review self-tapes, and book top talent for their projects, all in one place. All for free.
On Casting Networks, you can create an account and send your casting call to thousands of professional talent. So join Casting Networks, the industry's preferred casting platform where more than 1.2 million performers have scheduled over 14 million auditions. That's a lot of auditions. Visit www.castingnetworks.com/movies to create an account for free today. You know, making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
Welcome. This is the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I'm Alrik Purcell, founding host of the podcast. I'm a sci-fi horror filmmaker, and my first feature film, The Alternate, will be coming out on September 13th. Woo!
That's like a month away. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm Liz Manischel. I'm a writer, director, producer who has made 2 features, Bread and Butter and Speed of Life, and I'm currently in development on 2,715 more. I'm a distribution consultant who used to manage Sundance's creative distribution initiative, and I do sales.
This week, we welcome filmmaker and NFT expert Miguel Faus on the show to talk about how he used his successful short film to raise over $700,000 by selling parts of it as an NFT, which is incredible, in order to make the feature-length version of the film, which he's like shooting now or going to be shooting really soon if he hasn't already shot it. I really love this conversation. We had Rick Dugdale on with NFTs, and this one was just as enlightening to me. I hope everyone likes it as much as we do. We also have a very new game that we're playing this week from our producer, Eric Toms. It's like, never done a game before on the show. He suggested that we do a game. We were like really into the game, and now we're going to do the game. So that'll be fun. We also answer a listener question. And if we have time, if it's not too long already for me talking, we have an iTunes review. But first, Liz, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm 43 pages into the horror script with Amy Taylor. So our goal is to finish this draft and polish it by September 1st for this fellowship that we're submitting to. So that is, we're like really cranking out pages. I cranked out 7 pages this morning. What else? I came back from my high school reunion and 3 separate people said that they'd watched my movies, and I didn't know that they'd watched my movies. And I think maybe that's all I need, is that like every 10 years, I just go to a high school reunion and like 2 more people tell me they've seen my movies. And like that was really cool. And I would say the only other thing I want to mention is you were right. I've received 3 emails about the horror anthology that we announced on last week's episode.
Told you.
And it feels like this idea has legs because it seems to attract ideas and momentum, and people want to get involved. So no progress has been made. I haven't figured out what we're doing because I was away all weekend, but I'm feeling like that could be a real thing. Making a horror anthology this year feels like it could be a real thing.
Wow. That's cool. I told you people want to be in on anthologies because it's like everyone makes short films and nothing happens. And so like, you know, if you have a chance to make a short film that actually belongs to something and things could happen to it, of course you'd want to be in on that, you know?
Well, the amusing thing is like 2 of the emails I got weren't people who were like, I want to direct. It was like, I have an idea for you.
Oh.
I think if I'm interpreting their emails accurately, it was just people who wanted to see their ideas come to life on screen and thought that maybe we would make it. So that was cool.
So they're not like me who are just starving to direct things and want to be a part of projects.
They might be. They might
they're
be.
They're just smart, creative people who are just like, yes, like let's give Liz some great ideas so that she can make her feature.
Maybe, but I'm really the crew ownership piece and the idea of doing something in an alternate production schedule in a way that like a working parent or a working caretaker or just a working individual can handle is what I want to experiment with. So I'm hoping to find teammates who are like interested in experimenting with the form of how we make it, right? That it's not just like, oh, sweet, we got to make some horror films. But it's like, oh, no, I want to figure out a model that we can make movies sustainably. Like, I think that's the key to how we build it. And Lucas McNally, who listens to the show and is a filmmaker, reached out to me, and he's also interested in this kind of crew ownership template. So we're also we're chewing on how do you even make that work financially. So these are fun questions that are going to be on my mind for the next 5 years. What are you up to?
So I went and visited family this weekend, which was really great. Went to my mom's place, relaxing. It was fun. Getting into like model train stuff, because I've always loved trains and I've always wanted to have a model train set. But, you know, we actually had one when I was a kid, but my mom would just never take it out. She like just never trusted us to like not break it, you know? And then when she did take it out.
Is that why you love them? It was this unattainable object that you didn't get to play with?
Well, I always loved trains. Even before I even knew what a model train was, I always just like trains were my thing. But yeah, you know, I did love the train, and my mom would bring it out like Christmas or Thanksgiving.
Oh my God, this is so sad.
And then we got given a really nice one, like from a friend who was a model train hobbyist or whatever.
Yeah.
And that one we never got to play with. That was like the special one that we couldn't ever. I think I saw it run once in my life. But now I have my own, like one that I got really cheap on. It's like not as nice as the one that my mom had, but it's like a smaller one. And we found a really great deal for a whole bunch of old train parts. And so I have a set that I can start to put together. So we went to the train person in my mom's town and took in the trains and had them look at them. And he didn't know anything about them. He only knows about the bigger ones, not the smaller ones. So now I have another train person in my town I'm going to go to talk about these trains. Anyways, it was fun. And I'm basically trying to get this all going early so that when BB is like old enough that like she can actually see the trains and play with the trains.
You won't withhold train love from her. No. That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, they're also dangerous, right? It's like they're the old ones where it was like literally a transformer that you'd plug into like electric track. So if you like turn it on, like you could like blow it up.
Sure. Okay. That's fair.
So my mom had good reason not to like let 8-year-old boys play with a train that could like literally explode and like shut off the power in the house. Cause it's old school stuff. So it wasn't like,
but you're going to rewrite the narrative and you're going to do it safely. And that's very
exactly.
sweet.
Well, I'm going to have a place in the garage where it'll be set up all the time. That's like the new plan. And so like, that's the thing I'm working on now is trying to like, I have a table in the garage where I'm going to have it set up and kind of have it so it can run. And then I'm working on trying to get, cause I've always wanted, so where there used to be a train that ran on the walls of this restaurant that we used to go to when I was a kid. And I thought the train on the wall was the coolest thing. So what I'm trying to do is build it so I can have a train running in my garage around the ceiling of the garage. And I was looking it up and like there's people sell the parts to do this. This is a thing that you can do. There's enough people who love this stuff that it exists that you can buy it. It's just expensive. You could also just make it yourself. So I'm thinking of like over the long term, like as a fun little side hobby, when I'm not trying to make a movie to like build these crazy model trains. But
wait, I love how domestic and suburban you and I are turning into. Like you're building this like train garage, and then every place I went into this weekend, because I also went up north to visit family during my high school reunion, and like every room I was like, this would be a great reading room. Like I'd be like, look at this corner. I could really get into Mill and the Floss here. Like that's like, but we're absurd humans. We're caricatures at this moment.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. Getting older, having children, getting domesticated, you get interested in these things that, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you'd be like, what? Why do I care about that?
That's boring. Yeah.
Film updates, nothing really. Well, yeah, there is an update from this morning, but it's so boring and long. Basically, things are moving forward with that other project. It's just taking time. So I don't really have any other real answer.
The larger budget project that you shoot in Prague, right? That one?
Yeah. I don't really have any details, but it looks like the future for that is good. It's just how long it'll take. And if it's more like how long it'll take. And then if the writer is willing to stick around while they they get it all lined up. But I mean, honestly, to like give them an answer in 3 months, like that's not that crazy long of a time to like find out if you're going to make a movie or not. Just this writer is very excited and like wants to push his art out into the world and wants to like try to sell this script or get it made or something. So I feel like he thinks like 3 months is like an eternity. But hopefully I'll know more in a couple weeks. I'll be able to actually share some information. We'll see. And then I didn't write my scene that I was going to write. Didn't happen.
It's okay.
I almost did it this morning. I woke up at like 5:50 and I was like, oh, it's a full hour. This is a good time to write my fell back asleep. Woke up like 15 minutes before my daughter had to wake up. And I'm like, okay, well, didn't happen today.
What time do you go to sleep?
Between 11 and midnight.
Oh, no.
Too late?
Oh, no, yeah. You need sleep. Sleep. This is, again, old high school reunion Liz giving some adult advice. No, I go to sleep around 10:30, which is not that different.
Well,
but it's still, it's like could be 90 minutes more of sleep, which makes it much easier for me to wake up at I woke up at 5:45 this morning and then did my 7 pages in an hour, which was fast.
Wow, that's good.
But I had it all outlined, right? But I'm just saying, like,
you should feel like so proud. Like, why aren't you like you should be like dancing on sunbeams right now? You wrote 7 pages this morning. Holy shit. Well,
because I need. Amy and I had our meeting and we were like, we're going to get rid of like a half of these. Like, there's 7 pages. Yeah. That doesn't mean there's 7 pages.
I'm very productive. I was productive. You wrote 7 pages. Even if you burned them all, you still wrote them.
I wrote them. No, thank you. But don't be so, see, now this is my turn to be nice to you. Don't be so hard on yourself for falling back asleep when you went to bed at midnight. That's crazy. You need to sleep more than 5 hours.
It was like 11:30 or something.
You need to sleep more than 5 hours. More sleep.
Right. Well, it was 6. It was supposed to be 6, but I slept 7. That's the problem, Damn, 7 hours always getting me. So the other thing that you shouldn't forget to do, including not sleeping, is don't forget to support us on Patreon. You can go over to www.patreon.com/MMIH podcast, and you'll be able to get to see the inner workings of the show. We have our weekly meetings are on there. Once in a while, Liz and I will record a bonus video, which we haven't done in forever. Yeah. We've got 3 bonus episodes that have not been dropped yet that will be dropped soon. I think I'll actually drop one this week. I actually got it out and dusted it off and I'm looking at it. So we might have a special bonus episode for all you Patreon patrons this week. But we also got to wish a very, very happy birthday to Jamie Sadler and then a very, very, very happy birthday to Paul Sloop, who also wants to say, you don't have to say anything. Well, here, they both have things to say. Let's do Jamie first. Just keep it in order here.
Wait, we have to always explain why we're saying happy birthday because people may be listening to this. This might be the first episode they ever listened to of our show.
Okay, Liz, why do we say happy birthday to Jamie and Paul?
Because they gave us money on Patreon and we equate that to a birthday celebration and we just want to celebrate that human. And it feels appropriate to say happy birthday to them. Like, thank you for existing. Thanks for the support.
So Jamie says that people should go check out The Stranger in Our Bed on Showtime, then review it very kindly on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes. That would make his producer, Terry, Buffalo Dragon, very happy. Also, Paul has to say, you don't have to say anything, but if you want to, I would just say that Paul binged 7 episodes on his first day of listening to the podcast and is hooked. Amazing. You and your guests should be the focus. I'm just happy to support the outstanding work and appreciate the fact that I'm able to learn so much about what the filmmakers I work with as a longtime festival programmer who does not make films go through to get their films made and seen. Keep up the great work and I'll keep recommending the podcast to others. Paul said a ton of other nice things, pretty much through every avenue he could possibly say nice things on. So, Paul, thank you for being awesome. But without any more further delay, here's our chat with Miguel Faus. We are here with Miguel Faus. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Give us the elevator pitch for your short, Calladita.
Sure. Calladita is a short film that now we're turning into a feature. It's about a Latin American domestic worker who works for a rich family in Spain, in the Costa Brava, during the summer. And it's a story of female empowerment and liberation within this context of very stark racial and social inequalities and injustice.
I want to take a second just to refresh. So we are talking about the short with regard to the elevator pitch, but how far along are you on the feature?
We are just literally this week starting like actual pre-production because we are starting to film on September 5th. Okay. So it's very much on track.
So how many days did you shoot the short then?
The short film was a 5-day shoot on location in the Costa Brava, which is like an hour from Barcelona.
What was the rough budget for the short?
The short film was around $30,000, which I crowdfunded via a Spanish platform that's similar to Kickstarter.
How did you come up with the idea?
The idea, so initially I wanted to portray this bourgeois world, and especially the kind of college kids of that bourgeois world from Barcelona. So like early 20s kids that are kind of, have no real worries and have a lot of like toxic masculinity, I guess, and also kind of, weird behaviors. And I wanted to kind of do a satire about that. And I started thinking about that a lot and felt weird with having one of them as the protagonist, because I felt like, if I wanted to judge them, it felt weird to have a protagonist that I wanted to judge in that satirical way. So I felt like I needed an external point of view. And then at that point, the domestic worker appeared to me as a perfect embodiment of that outlook, right? Because she's at the very center of this world, but has a very judgmental outlook on it and sees everything, hears everything, is like a spy within this world. And so it works perfectly as a camera in a way.
And then how long do you spend working on the film from coming up with the idea to, it hitting film festivals and being released?
For the short film, I think, let me think. So I started writing the first versions of the script around the summer of 2018. And then we shot in May 2019. So that was almost a year, just workshopping the idea. I'm thinking I'm doing different versions of the script, etc. Because it's very much a summer film. So, I had to wait for the summer and also, raising the funds and all that. And then the film premiered in March 2020. So I guess like 2 years until we started going to festivals, etc. And then it was during the pandemic. So the festival run was a bit weird in that I couldn't travel to a lot of the festivals, like Palm Springs Short Fest, for example, was online. But, the short film did well, traveled the world, ended up in HBO Max in the States. So I'm very happy about that.
Compared to other projects you've made, how difficult was this one?
I think it wasn't a lot more difficult or less. It was kind of, I don't know, like average. But what I found quite difficult was I kind of made it as a challenge to myself that I would kind of build the crew from scratch, because I started cinema in London, but I knew that I wanted to make my first few films here in Spain, in Barcelona. And so this was my graduation film from my London program, but I wanted to shoot in Spain. And I could have brought the crew from my classmates and people I knew from London, but I kind of decided to build the crew from scratch in Spain because I knew that I would need Spanish collaborators, and I forced myself to kind of meet them, etc. And that was pretty challenging, to be honest, because when you're doing a short film, which are always forcedly low budget, there's a lot of difficulties there. It's much easier to ask favors from friends than to try to go out there and find people who are proficient and professional at their job, but are also willing to kind of do you a favor, right? So that was very challenging, but in the end, it worked out.
So what was your approach to that? Like, how did you end up finding your collaborators, like moving to a new market that you've never worked in before as a filmmaker?
I had worked a little bit, but just like as a runner many years ago. And I kind of knew a couple of people, and it was like pulling threads, right? Like, I know this person, he can introduce me to this other person, and I tried to convince everyone. And the good thing was that the short film had some kind of stamps of approval in a way that made people kind of, for example, my previous short film had won the best short film award at the Sitges Film Festival here in Spain, which is a pretty good festival. So that kind of people like that. And then also a distributor picked that short film and actually premiered it in cinemas here in Barcelona, which is quite rare for a short film, like as a standalone screening. So people like that, and I could show that, and I could say, hey, look, these distributors are also looking at this short film. Maybe it's gonna end up in the cinema. So people kind of felt like that was cool, and maybe they could spare 5 days for something like that.
How did the HBO Max thing come about with this one?
I think it all started at the Miami Film Festival, where Calladita played and won an award for the best Ibero-American film. And that's, I think, where the team at HBO Max saw it, and they reached out and said that I think it was mostly kind of the Latin element of the short film that they liked, and they want to have more Hispanic or Spanish-speaking content. And so they wanted to see the short there in their catalog. That was very cool. And so it helps because more people can watch it, and it's always great to have the story be seen by many people.
So you didn't have a sales agent or anything like... I work in distribution and artist support, but I know nothing about the European model of how things are done. And the presumption has always been that European filmmakers always have more support from the state or from, whatever it is. Can you tell us a little bit about, did you receive any infrastructural support from either film school or England or Barcelona or Spain or anything? Any sales rep come on? Did anyone help you finance it? What are the key teammates that help you get off the ground?
Sure. I mean, I did have a sales agent for Cagadita, but I don't think that they were very important in making that sale to HBO, just because it was HBO that came to us. And then, of course, they handled it, and that was cool to have that help. But it was them who reached out to us after Miami. In terms of if we had any help or infrastructure for financing and making the film, the short answer is no, not at all. We tried, but the systems for getting public funding here in Europe and especially in Spain are very weird and random and especially opaque. There is one call for entries a year where you can request money for a short film here in Spain. There's two kind of different sections. One for a project of a short film, so you get the money in advance, and then one for a short film you've already made, and then that helps you recoup the money you already invested. We weren't in time for the summer for the one for a project because the call for entries was during the summer, so it conflicted with our timeline. But we requested the one for short films that are already made, and we didn't get it. So no, we didn't get any help. We crowdfunded it ourselves via a platform that is similar to Kickstarter, and that was it. The short film is related to my film school program in that it's my graduation film, but the way that the London Film School works is also they give you very little help. I mean, a stipend. So we got £5,000 from the school. Essentially, it's kind of deducted from your tuition of the last year, and it's like their investment into the film. And so they are like co-producers and they invest in your film, but they make a point of not helping beyond that in terms of equipment, etc., because you're supposed to go out there and go into the real world and make the film. If you need more money, go raise it wherever you can. I mean, of course, a lot of people use classmates for the crew, and that's great. I already explained that I went a different route because I felt like it was a good challenge, but everyone was paid the minimum, but still everyone was paid in the crew, and we rented the equipment professionally and all of that. So that was also a cool challenge that kind of prepared me for all the adventure of the future right now.
Wow, that's interesting because I worked on a Columbia thesis film, and it was interesting because they had all these rules, like tons of rules, all these rules you had to follow. But I still think they gave them gear, but I don't think they gave them money. But anyways, I have one little small question. So for the HBO Max deal, did they give you a fee? And if so, was it comparable to like actually getting a return on the budget, or was it like a tiny little like whatever fee?
No, they gave us a fee, and it's the decent fee. We didn't recoup the whole budget, but it's a decent fee that we're happy with.
Nice. Awesome.
So taking the short and moving it to the feature, you have a bevy of high profile people associated with the feature. Mm-hmm. Can you take us through? I think a lot of people don't know how to attach high profile producers. So how did you get to Mike Judge? How did you get to Jim Cummings? What was the process of attaching these people?
Yeah, it's all very random. So I can kind of tell you the whole story from the beginning and you will see how it goes. So I finished the short film in late 2019, and I already started writing the version of the feature. And I kind of was convinced that I wanted this to be my first feature, and that I wanted to move into feature film directing with this project. Then I started writing the short film and the screenplay for the feature, and I started applying to every program that I could find for developing first features, screenplay labs, everything that I could find. And I got accepted into a very cool program in Spain that basically gave me a script editor for a year, for a very good professional screenwriter who's quite established here in Spain. Was my tutor for a year, and that was great. And then I also got accepted into the short to feature lab that Jim Cummings and Ben Wisner run in LA. And that's an amazing program that I was invited to in January 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And it was great. They flew us out to Malibu. They select, I think, like 7 or 8 filmmakers that are transitioning from short to feature. And, Jim and Ben are kind of heroes of indie filmmaking in the last few years. They've championed a commitment to independence in a very unique way. And they've had great success by staying independent, in very radically independent in every step of the process, but not only crowdfunding, but then also, producing and distribution, sales internationally, etc. And it's kind of, they invite us there for a week and they told us about the process, and, they share their knowledge and their experience and offer a helping hand with whatever they can be helpful with. And then from that, they continue to be involved in the project, have been reading scripts, helping, advising, and naturally ended up becoming executive producers of Calladita and helping in many ways. Then I continued with the process of trying to fund the feature film. And I started, so I wanted to fund it with the traditional methods here in Spain, which is mostly state funding from both the whole Spanish government and also the government here in Catalonia, which is the region where Barcelona is. And then also pre-sales to public TVs, especially because this being kind of an auteur indie film, it's not really appropriate for like the big networks, which there are two of here in Spain, like private TV networks, and they wouldn't go for this kind of content. So you approach both the state funds and the public TVs. But in order to have likelihood of getting any of these, you need mildly established production company to kind of be the one who presents it. That already proved very problematic to me and very difficult, because I approached them all and they were all, oh, I love the short film, it did a great run, the script is great, why don't we present this in 2024? Like 3 years from now, 4 years from now. Because the problem is there's a bottleneck, because, there's only one call a year for state funding, and they don't want other projects competing with the projects they already have in line to present, and especially if they are also a first feature, etc. So, there's a bottleneck. And I was like, I don't want to wait 3 years to have a chance at maybe making my film. So I set up my own production company and tried it on my own. That didn't work out. There's a lot of kind of connections matter, and the whole system is a bit opaque. As I said, I can't really explain like how it works. And in any case, that didn't pan out and we didn't get any funding in that way. And so because I had been in the NFT space for a while, collecting and becoming an enthusiast of the whole NFT boom and philosophy especially, I thought maybe there's a way that we can crowdfund this film with NFTs. And at the time that had never been done. It seemed like a challenge, but it seemed like a good option to fundraise this film that I wasn't being able to fund in any other way. And that's like, I've been working on that for a few months, and that's how we have gotten the film close to being fully funded. And that was also how Mike Judge got attached to the project, basically, because one of our biggest backers that bought a lot of NFTs has an NFT project with Mike Judge. So he showed him the short film and Mike liked it and bought one of our NFTs. And then this big collector gifted him a higher tier NFT that entitles the holder to be a producer. And so now, that gives him, Mike Judge, a producer title.
So how much have you raised on NFTs so far? Can you say like what that number is?
Yeah, the beauty of the blockchain is that it's all public. So you don't even need me to say it. Anyone can go and check. So far we've raised a little over $650,000.
Wow. And how long did that take?
So, I worked for a few months in preparing everything, but since the moment we launched, that was 3 months ago on March 2nd.
Oh my God.
All right. So many questions.
Okay.
All right. Jump in.
I'm here. Yeah.
So how did you do it? Like how does it go? Like where do you put them up on a marketplace to be bought? And then how do you market them to be bought, to be sold? Like how do you find the people who want to buy these?
Sure. The first thing that I want to stress very much is that it's not easy. Like, it sounds like the number is huge and it sounds like, this is a gold mine and everyone can come here and get the project funded. But it's important to stress that it's not easy. I had to fight for every sale, let's say. And then also I had it easier than most people because I was already very involved in the NFT community and space before I launched the project, right? So the NFT space is still very much a niche of a few thousand people. And it feels like a lot of us kind of know each other from NFT Twitter. So that's the first part that is important, right? It's like that I was already very much an active member of the community, that I was contributing, I was already collecting stuff, meeting people, connecting, etc. So what I did is I created a collection of 2,400 NFTs out of the short film. So all the pieces are unique and they are either still frames of the short film or videos of shots from the short film. Then that collection is structured in 4 different tiers of ascending price and rarity and utility. And in a way, it works kind of similar to a Kickstarter campaign where you have a level of $100, a level of $500, $1,000, whatever it is. There are different levels. And if you get a higher level, you get better rewards or better perks or whatever. And then there's no real, we didn't do it on an existing marketplace. The way we do it is it's on our own website. People go to our website and they buy the NFTs. And then once you buy it, it's automatically kind of minted on the blockchain. And so it's instantly tradable on many different marketplaces that exist on the Ethereum blockchain. And so someone can resell it there if they choose to, but they buy it from us directly on our website.
Okay. So the 650 is from the sales of the 2,400 NFTs.
Yeah, we haven't sold all of them. We've sold 600 of them, but we sold out the highest tiers. So that's how we accomplished a sizable part of the budget already, because we sold out the 3 highest tiers and we only have now available the cheapest ones. I mean, they're still not cheap, but they are, the most affordable ones.
Okay. And then, so I'm just trying to figure out the practical steps of taking, I assume a lot of this was purchased with Bitcoin or portions of Bitcoin, sometimes with credit card, with Ethereum. Okay, it was Ethereum based.
All of it is purchased with Ethereum, and then I exchange that Ethereum for dollars.
Okay.
And I take it to my bank account.
So it's in a bank account right now. It will not fluctuate past this point.
A small part of it is still on ETH.
Okay.
It fluctuates, but most of it is in the bank.
Okay. It's so interesting.
Yeah. So I guess, can anyone do this? Or is it do you have to have some sort of structure or some sort of connection to the Ethereum blockchain in order to set up your own NFTs?
No.
How's that work?
The beauty of it is that it's completely permissionless. It's completely censor resistant. Anyone can go there and do exactly everything that I did. Anyone, it's perfectly open. The hurdle that I had, which is getting better and better every week, is that I had to invest a decent amount of money because there wasn't at the time, and now there is one, but it's not really great. But there are a lot of this. What I'm going to say now, there's a lot of people developing things that are gonna solve this. But essentially, there isn't a platform like Kickstarter where you can go and set your parameters and it will do all the technical side for you. So I had to hire a team of developers to actually create the NFTs and create the website where people go and buy them, etc. So I had to invest that money. But in the very near future, there's going to be a Web3 Kickstarter where you just go upload your pictures and that will take care of for you for the online shop and the minting of the NFTs. And so, it's going to be more affordable.
That's what I need because I can't do the other part. But if it's if I go to a place and create my NFTs through some sort of web app or something, sure, that's no problem.
that's already available and that's easy to do. If you want to go there and create a handful of NFTs or a few NFTs and sell them, that's easy. The difficult part is that the collection is 2,400, has different levels. You want people to be able to buy it directly on your website. Those things are what complicates stuff. But as I'm saying, it's gonna be available pretty soon as a platform.
For a piece of art, I mean, I understand you had the HBO Max deal and you did well in film festivals, but it's not Marvel, right? So it doesn't have a global recognition. So for a piece of art that's still emerging in terms of building a reputation, how do you decide what part of the film can be extracted is the most valuable? You know what I mean? What shot, what frame has the most value? What video has the most value?
It's all random. So
really?
all of the shots are in the collection, and out of each shot I took 25 frames. But when you go and buy, you say I want to buy a frame, but the one you get is random.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Is that true for the highest tiers though? Are you getting random videos at that high level? Or?
Yeah. So the lowest tier, there are 2,300 still frames. So it's 25 by 92. There are 92 shots in the short film, so there are 25 frames out of each. Then tiers 2, 3, and 4 are all videos. Tier 2 is the second cheapest, and all of the 92 shots from the short film. And then the most expensive ones are not from the short film, but they are from additional material that I've been shooting in these past few years, like kind of like teasers of the feature film. And they are also videos, but they are all also random. So like, for example, there is a very iconic sex scene in the short film on top of a flamingo float on a swimming pool. And that was recently minted, and it was the last one to be sold. So out of the 92, it was the very last one. And that's probably one of the best, or like, one of the ones that has a chance of becoming iconic in the future.
Yeah. And then the value could go up on these now that they've been purchased, and then they could be potentially resold if they want to, or just collected or whatever. But if they are sold again, you don't get any other money, right? It's just,
I do.
It's only the person who bought it. Oh, you do? I
get 10% royalties forever on any resales. Wow. And I mean, some of them have already been resold, and it's kind of instant in a way. Like, you could go right now and place an offer on this one that I just described, the sex scene shot. You could go right now and place an offer, and then the owner would get your offer instantly and could decide whether they want to sell it or not. So it's all, very instant and kind of frictionless in terms of secondary market. But again, it's not a promise of financial return. It could go up and down, and we don't know. But in any case, it's a much better version of Kickstarter, because on Kickstarter, there's no chance that your contribution to a film might go up. Like, what does that even mean? You can sell your T-shirt on eBay for more than you can put the film. It's weird, right? So, for example, the only precedent to Calladita of a feature film that was funded this way is Julie Pacino's project. It's called Keepers of the Inn, and it was a collection of photographs. And I haven't checked recently, but for some time there, after the whole collection sold out, the floor price of the collection, which means the cheapest available on the secondary market, was half of the primary price. Okay, so if you had paid $100, you could sell it instantly for $50 if you chose to. And in NFT terms, some people might think, oh, that's crappy because you're only getting 50% of your money. But compared to Kickstarter, it's amazing, because the film is already is getting made and you're getting a 50% discount, right? Like, you're getting half of your money back, but your contribution is still very much useful to the film in being made.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Is there any correlation from this NFT fundraising campaign, essentially, I'm going to call it a fundraising campaign, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's accurate.
To the eventual distribution of the film? I mean, are you going back to these individuals and doing direct distribution as one window for like an NFT window of distribution? I mean, like, how are you kind of fostering the relationship with the people who own NFTs of the short for the feature and the eventual release?
I mean, we'll see. There aren't many promises beyond the utilities of the NFTs that have already been laid out. For example, everyone that has an NFT gets to watch the film before anyone else, and that will be with a private link that is token gated. So if you have the NFT, you access a website where you can watch the film. Beyond that, we haven't made any concrete promises, because it's a balance that is important to strike. Because on the one hand, the NFT holders will benefit from the fact that the movie is successful. And the movie is going to be successful if we have good distribution deals, and potentially distributors might not want us doing anything in terms of, distribution with our NFT holders, right? So it's a complicated kind of system, and we want to kind of navigate it well. For example, I've already been having conversations with distributors or sales agents, and they seem to be very worried about what I'm going to do with NFTs. Because, a sales agent recently was telling me, hey, but like, during the distribution period, I don't want you releasing any NFTs of the feature, because if I sell this film to a French distributor and they have a whole planned marketing campaign for the film release, and then you are out there selling stills that they don't want to be circulating online, that as an NFTs, that's gonna be a problem. So I guess it's just figuring out calendars. But what I will say is that my priority is first making this film to the best of my ability and make it an awesome film that our NFT holders can be proud of. And then second to that, and very immediate after that, making our holders happy. So whatever that looks like, that's what we'll do.
Because you raise the money through the NFTs, they're not actually like investors in the movie in a traditional sense, right? Like, they're not going to get a percentage of anything. You just have all the money, and they have their NFTs, and that's the transaction.
Yes, exactly. And that's because that's not out of our desire. It's just a legal limitation. We cannot offer share in the revenues of the film to our NFT holders because that would turn our NFTs into securities. And then that would have to be regulated. And that's with the current state of regulation, it wouldn't be possible. However, we do have the commitment with our NFT supporters that 50% of the net profits of the film will be put into a community treasury that will then be governed by the NFT holders. So we created a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, and put all of that money into this DAO treasury. And then, holders get to choose what we do with it, potentially fund a new film or make an awesome premiere party or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's essentially the same thing, because that's what will end up happening to investors in all movies. Well, they eventually will get 50% of the profits to them. So it's cool that you made that happen.
Yeah, we can't really send it to them directly.
Right.
With current regulation, potentially that I don't know if that might change, but currently we can't, and so we just put it there and allow them to vote on what we do with it, except from paying themselves.
But the original attraction to NFTs, I assume it comes from a place of being excited by decentralizing power and resources and bringing those kind of things back to the people. And I guess I'm just thinking about distribution and your willingness and your openness to go into traditional distribution when it feels like you're so interested in this kind of like innovative maverick form of connecting with audiences.
Yeah.
You kind of alluded to an answer earlier, but can you go into why you're open to traditional distribution with this film?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my priority is for the film to find its audience and, be seen by as many people as possible and by the right kind of people, in the sense that, people who are going to enjoy it and like it, etc. And I would love for all of those people to already be very much in the Web3 space and collecting NFTs and all hanging out at a Web3 version of Netflix, but unfortunately that isn't happening yet. So we'll just have to go where our audience is. So it's like, I don't want to let my moral or political ideals of how the distribution and exhibition marketplace should look like in the way of Calladita finding its audience. And that's also beneficial for the NFT holders, because let's say the film ends up in Netflix and is trending all over the world and becomes very famous. That's going to be super beneficial for the NFT holders, because now they have a piece of an IP that is iconic and unique and famous.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to like your actual NFT sale and strategy. So I know you mentioned that you're part of the community, so that was one of the reasons why it was easier for you. But can you talk about like what your plan was? Like, did you have like a video that's on your website to talk about the project? I mean, did you market it at all? Like, was Jim Cummings and some of your other like VIP producers retweeting it and sharing it with their networks? Like, how were you able to generate so many sales so quickly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So like 99% of the sales have been to people who were already collecting NFTs. And so, for example, Jim has indeed been retweeting some of our tweets, and he came to a couple of Twitter spaces, but I don't think that's made us any, like, zero sales probably, because, Jim. So if we had done a crowdfunding campaign traditionally, or a crowd equity campaign like Jim Cummings has done successfully, I'm sure that Jim's network would have been able to be mobilized, and we would have gotten some investors in that way. But converting traditional film investors or indie film investors into NFT buyers is extremely difficult, and we haven't been able to do it. So from very early on, I realized that this would be the case, and I decided to focus all of our marketing strategy only on people who are already collecting NFTs and only in the NFT space per se. Especially because the learning curve, both mentally and practically, like technologically, is still quite steep. You have to learn how to set up a wallet on Ethereum. You have to go to Coinbase and buy Ethereum. Then you have to transfer it to your wallet. It's a bit of a mess. So like even friends of mine who would like to support aren't willing to take an hour to sit down and learn how to do it, right? So so then we decided to target especially only people who are already collecting NFTs, and then those people hang out mostly in Twitter, and so that's where we focused most of our energy. And yes, we have a video where I explain everything what we're doing, and then just trying to spread the word as much as possible within this niche, which is small but is also super saturated. It's like there's so many NFT projects launching every day, every week, and so it's all full of noise, and it's so hard to cut through the noise and grab people's attention. And also because it's a very speculative market, most people who are buying NFTs, they are looking for a quick return on their investment. They're looking for something that they're going to be able to flip tomorrow for more money. And Calladita never presented itself as that and never really offered that in any case, because that's only possible if you sell out very quickly, because then the secondary market kind of becomes active and has a potential of being more expensive, right? So we've had to kind of find more sophisticated NFT collectors who have a longer time horizon for their investment, or they don't even see it as an investment. They just see it as collecting something that they like and supporting a film, etc. And supporting also a thing that is innovative and historic in the NFT space, because it's the first film in Europe to be ever financed this way. And so finding those people has been the key for us, kind of. And that's where I've seen that even our very specific and targeted marketing that we've done on Twitter, only kind of targeting NFT people, converts very little, because mostly people who see it might find that our NFTs are too expensive for them, or that they are not liquid enough, that they're not going to be able to flip them quickly. And so they don't buy them. But most of our sales literally have come from me reaching out to people directly, like on direct messages, or meeting people in events, etc., telling them about it. And once they've seen kind of my passion, they've seen that this is an innovative project and they want to get behind it, that they want to collect a piece of it. If they are this kind of more sophisticated collectors, then we've made the sales.
I think my last question is, what were your expectations for a fundraising goal? And are you happy with how things turned out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super happy because I'm able to make the film. So that's my main thing, and that's amazing. And we're still short, so it's tough. We have to make sacrifices, and we have to be very tough in negotiations with everyone in the whole process. And it's challenging, but I'm very happy to be making the film. And in terms of expectations, it's very hard to answer because I never had expectations. Like I never knew what my expectations were. It's funny. Like I was talking to friends the day before we launched the NFTs. I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen. Like maybe we sell out the whole collection in one day, or maybe we only sell like 2 and nobody gives a shit, right? Because the NFT space is so random. What if it's still very dominated by random factors, like some influencers who are super influential. So if one of them had gotten super excited and bought 10 of our NFTs and then tweeted about it, then maybe it could have sold out super quickly. Or, we launched on the day that Ukraine was invaded. Like it's impossible to predict something like that. And then that meant that the market tanked for a few days and there was absolutely no volume. So, it's very hard to have expectations, and everything changes so quickly. And now we are in a bearish market, and it's harder. And our NFTs were kind of well priced at the time, but now they might be too expensive, even though in dollar terms, they are a lot cheaper than they used to be, because the market changes so rapidly. But overall, super happy. We're able to make the film, and we have an amazing community of collectors. Also, I didn't speak too much about this, but yeah, we have an incredible collector base, essentially. A lot of people who are super influential in the NFT space that have been collecting our NFTs, buying them. Like, I guess, I don't know, our audience is going to be mostly filmmaking audience, so they're not going to be familiar with these names. But one of our collectors is, for example, Cosimo de Medici, who is like an anon name that has been rumored for months to be Snoop Dogg. Like Snoop Dogg tweeted that he was this guy. And now it's become pretty apparent that it's not actually him, but it's someone very close to him, and they are very, they kind of strategize together or whatever. And he collected one of our NFTs. Or also G-Money, who is a quite influential crypto figure, because Adidas released a few NFTs a few months ago, and one of them was featuring this guy, G-Money, as kind of the protagonist of this Adidas NFT, because he was like the partner in their drop. So, a lot of people like that who are super influential got behind the project, and that's been super cool as well.
I kind of want to ask about the movie now, like where you're at, because you've got a lot of press around it. You had an article in Variety, like you've raised all this money. You're the first European film to do this. Like when you're going out to talent, to crew, and to like setting up the movie, like does this help you? Like do you find that people are excited to be a part of your movie because it's like this special new thing, or are you not even at that stage yet in pre-production?
No, we are, but unfortunately, no. Like people aren't. It's weird because it's also new that things don't convert in any direction. So like, for example, we have Emily Mortimer attached to play a character. And I was telling this to someone the other day. If suddenly it wasn't Emily Mortimer and it was someone huge, like say Nicole Kidman was going to play a role, that I think that wouldn't move the needle. Like that wouldn't mean that hundreds of our NFTs sell tomorrow, because people in the NFT space, people who are going to buy our NFTs, they don't care about most of the things that normal people care about, let's say. And in the other side, it's the same. Like film people are not going to care that this is the first film in Europe to be funded this way. They might think, okay, it's a cool curiosity, but still my fee is this. And if you're not willing to pay it, then I don't care that the movie is historic because of the way it was funded, right? So that's been my experience. But I mean, mostly, for example, I was recently in the Cannes Film Festival a couple of weeks ago, and I was invited to a few panels to speak about this and give some conferences, etc. And that kind of thing does get people excited because, they see that the project is garnering attention from people at Cannes, etc. So that's interesting. But, it's more Cannes than the NFTs.
So I have one last question, and it's sort of an NFT question. So like, now that you've gone through this process, like, do you think that this is something that is easily like replicable for the future for other filmmakers? Like, is this going to be like a way people are going to raise money for their films? Or is it kind of more like we don't really know where the NFT space is going? Like it can go in lots of different directions and it's sort of the Wild West still, Yeah,
it's definitely still the Wild West, and it's definitely very unpredictable to know what's going to happen. Since the beginning, like a year ago, when I started designing how I was going to do this fundraiser through NFTs, it was one of my priorities to make this a model that would be replicable and that would be useful for other filmmakers, so that we could kind of start a movement of decentralization of film funding, and that very different filmmakers from diverse backgrounds and that who are passionate to tell their story could get those films made and greenlight themselves. Because, for example, at earlier points, some advisors told me, hey, there's a lot of money in crypto. Like even, if you need $1 million, maybe just make 20 NFTs that are worth 50 grand, and we'll find 20 producers who want to put 50 grand and that's it, right? But that felt less decentralized to me. So I preferred somewhere where more people were able to contribute, and that seemed like a more replicable model. However, like at this point, I'm not sure how replicable this is if someone is willing to do all of the steps that I took, then potentially they would have the similar success and maybe even more. And the space will get more acquainted with NFTs being used for this. So that's helpful. But there's been a lot of things that have helped me that would be hard to replicate. Like the fact that I was already very involved in the space. I was already an NFT collector. So I knew people from the collections that I was part of, like the CryptoPunks, for example, which is a very established avatar collection. And a lot of them have supported the film. If I hadn't been part of that community, probably that wouldn't have happened. So there's been famous actors and famous people in many different disciplines that have attempted to drop NFTs and that have done very badly. So that shows you that it's a very special market that you have to approach in very special ways, and especially in a very genuine and crypto native way. But I hope that it's going to be replicable. I want to try to offer a helping hand, and I want to try to open source all the knowledge that I may have accrued through this process, so that more people can copy us and hopefully it will work out for them as well, because I do believe that the technology is here to stay and that it offers a much better crowdfunding version than the ones we had previously with Kickstarter and stuff. Hopefully in the future, the regulation will change so that we can also offer a direct return for backers, so that this can be more similar to a crowd equity. But it's funny, right? Because like I was talking recently with Jim Cummings about this, and they did a crowd equity campaign for the beta test, and they raised like $300,000, I think. And the beta test did very well. And recently they went back to all their investors and they gave them their money back plus a decent return. And most of them told them, hey, just, keep it and go make another movie. So essentially that's like the DAO that I was explaining earlier, where, we don't give people the money directly, but we ask them what we can do with it. So then there's no real difference. They had the opportunity to give the money back, but people didn't even want it. So I think the technology is here to stay. Digital ownership is a radical idea that is going to change the internet and is going to change the world. And so yes, I think in the future, many more films will be funded this way, and many people are going to be collecting film NFTs in the coming months and years.
Well, let's jump to our final round of questions. They're not about NFTs. What's the first film you ever made? How do you feel about it now?
When I was 16, I made a short film with my friends, and that was kind of very much inspired by Tarantino. And it was like a gangster thriller with my 16-year-old friends. I don't know how I feel about it now because I haven't watched it in a very while, but it taught me so much. So I love that part of it, how much I learned from just making it with no idea about anything before making that film.
What's the best filmmaking advice you've ever received?
I'm not sure. I don't remember, but I think if I had to pick one, it would be something along the lines of like that it has to be genuine. You have to stay true to your vision and be relentless with that, because making a film is so hard and so tiring and so crazy of an endeavor that if it has to be something that you absolutely love and want to see out there in the world. And if that's the case, then you can't compromise.
What's an example of some really bad filmmaking advice you've received?
Anything related to rules, like, films have to be this way or do that, or you have to have a 3-act structure, or this turn has to happen in page, whatever. Any of that crap is never useful. Creativity has no rules and no boundaries. And if it works, then it works.
Do you have a goal as a filmmaker?
Because making my next film, right, is the goal. So it's like a continuous goal.
If you could go back in time, what's the piece of advice you would give yourself?
That it's okay to be patient, that it takes time, and just have to trust the process and keep at it.
And the last question is making movies hard?
Yeah, definitely. It's very hard, but in the end, it's all worth it because we love movies, and, movies can change the world.
You made it. You did it. You survived.
And my last really important question is, will my Bitcoin go back up eventually? Or is it going to just be at 30,000 forever?
I don't know. I'm not an expert at all. I mean, people who are a lot smarter than me, what I've been hearing is that the bear market is gonna last some months or years. I don't know, but eventually it will work out.
Yeah, because I feel like you're the second person we've had on the show talking about NFTs, and they were like also super like believer in the technology and everything. And so you figure like if NFTs and Ethereum blockchain sticks around, that all the crypto stuff is gonna stick around and go back up. But maybe that's not the case. I don't know.
I mean, the ones that are smaller cap and smaller projects might not kind of make it right to the next cycle. But Bitcoin for sure, and Ethereum also, in my opinion. Yeah, I think it's like a new era of the internet, and it's here to stay for sure.
And how best can people support you, your fundraising campaign, NFTs in general? Just send people to where you want to send them.
Sure. I mean, you can check out the whole project on our website, calladita.film, and you can watch the short film there as well, and buy one of our NFTs if you want to support it and you believe in everything we've been talking about today. And then the best place to keep updated with me and the project is my Twitter @Miguel Faus.
Liz, what do you remember about our talk with Miguel?
Oh, I was dreading you asking me that question. I don't remember anything at all.
No.
I barely remember his face. I have pleasant feelings in association with him. I think he was a nice guy. I really don't remember much. What about you?
Newsflash, Liz thinks he was a nice guy. Yeah, that's funny. No, I remember some things. I remember things like that he was really smart and really put together and then really honest about his whole NFT plan, that like it is not necessarily something that he's like, yeah, every filmmaker should be doing what I'm doing. This is the greatest, bestest thing in the whole world. We should all be raising $700,000 on NFTs. He was very realistic and was like, no, like the reason why this worked for me is because I'm ingrained in the community. Like I know about NFTs. Like this is like one of my hobbies in addition to filmmaking is NFTs. Like I'm a collector. I've been a part of the community since it began. It's like he just knows people. And then he talked about like all the big brands and all the like other people who have tried to like, you know, raise money and like do things through NFTs and have failed like miserably, like big brands, you know? So apparently NFTs is very like a very specific thing for a very specific community. And like you have to kind of be intertwined and ingrained with that community, or at least understand them in order to like have like some success, you know, with this model. But it was really cool to hear like how like he laid out exactly what he did. Like he answered all my nitty gritty questions of exactly what he meant by everything. It was really good. I really love this episode a lot. And I'm like, you know, basically after Rick Dugdale like didn't like, you know, get a million hits like I thought it was going to be like one of our most popular episodes. And then like people just didn't seem to care about NFTs and filmmaking. I'm like, oh, well, maybe Miguel, people won't care. But I think people should care because this is a really interesting topic. Did that spark any memories for you, Liz, or not really?
Kind of. I remember comparing his experience in the NFT world to back in 2012 when I was starting to get involved with Kickstarter projects. And it was this idea, like, I remember you start a Kickstarter, but you always have to go and donate to like 5 to 10 other Kickstarters before you, or crowdfunding campaigns before you start your own. And you have to feel what it's like as a backer before you start your own project. And that's what I was comparing it to with NFTs. Like you need to be a user and maybe a collector before you start selling to fully understand the process from beginning to end.
Yeah. And he did make some comparisons to crowdfunding and Kickstarter, you know, and how it is similar, but very different. You know, like you can't just like expect the same sort of interaction and, you know, way of marketing it as a Kickstarter campaign. You have to kind of like approach it from a very NFT perspective, you know, and kind of be like targeting those people in a very specific way, you know, which was easy for him because he knew them, basically. He was like one of them. So it totally worked for him. Okay, I'm too excited. We can't, no fancy transition. We just have to go and talk about this game that we're going to play.
Oh, God.
So I'm just going to call it The Game because I love the game.
Yeah.
Starring Michael Doug. Liz, I think this is something that maybe other people do. I don't know. I'm just going to say that Eric Toms invented it, that this is his trademarkable game that he made. So here, enough build up. Here's how it works. So Eric will supply us each week with a question, like basically an indie filmmaker challenge. So basically like this is like a scenario on set that you're faced with. Like, how do you solve for this problem? Like, you know, your actor's arm got chopped off by a guillotine. Like, how do you continue to shoot the movie for the next 20 days with an armless actor? Like that kind of thing, but like more realistic.
Oh, good. So
we're going to do it blind. Each week, Liz or I will not know the question before it's being asked of us. Only one of us will know. And then, you know, after the person who doesn't know the question answers it, then the question asker, which is me this week, will weigh in and give some input. So without further delay, here is the first ever question of the new game we're playing on Making Movies is Hard called The Game. So, you're on day 14 of a 20-day shoot, and there is an accident on set that results in one of your actors getting a small cut on the side of their face. The actor will recover without a scar, but the rest of their scenes will not match for the rest of the shoot. What do you do, director? What do you do?
Okay, I was taking notes as if this was going to be way more complicated than it turned out to be. I was like, where's the llama? Where's the giant stork? Okay. So the question I would have a follow-up question, which Eric can't answer and no one can answer, but are you shooting chronologically? I guess the assumption is that you are not shooting chronologically, right? Because if you're shooting chronologically, the easy solution is just to write in a quick scene where they scratch their face, right? And then it matches for the rest of the movie. Oh God. Oof. What do you do? What do you do? You could tell that I had not heard this question because of the immense amount of pregnant silence just filling the room. Because my instinct is to use it, right? Like I want to use it in some way because I always feel like either the audience is not going to notice because they're going to be so immersed in the film that they're going to not notice, especially if the first instance of the cut on the face happens 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in. Like part of me is just like, oh, well, fuck it. Just have them appear the way they are. And some faces will have the cut and some will not. It depends on how big the cut is. But the other instance, of course, is to bring in a makeup artist and just cover it up. I mean, that seems like the obvious solution, but there must be some reason why Eric set up this situation without, like, why wouldn't you just cover it up with makeup, right? Okay,
yeah, that was my answer.
Yeah, so I'm overthinking it as per usual because, I mean, I wonder if is there a catch? Is there a trick to this question? Well,
the only trick is if the scar was like, what was his name who died sadly? Michael K. Williams. Remember how big his scar was?
Oh,
that right down the face?
Right, if it's really
it'd have
prominent.
to be like a humongous scar. It would have to be such a big scar for it to make a difference that the actor would not be able to act because of the pain or the humongous bloody like cut through their face. Like it would have to be so big that the whole thing would have to be postponed, you know?
Yeah.
Because if it is just a little cut on the face, well, yeah, makeup for one, and then just not favoring that side. Just favor the other side when you're shooting.
That's really smart. I didn't even think about that. But I do think my default is like, don't worry about it too much. Like I was thinking back on Witchy, the short horror comedy that I'm on the festival circuit with, and like Sean wears a completely different tie in like two different, like in one scene, he's supposed to be in the same outfit, but we accidentally put like the wrong tie on him at the end of the movie. And like no one has said anything. Not one person has said anything.
The continuity can be so forgiving if your story's good and your performances are good. Like no one gives a shit, you know? Yeah. Like I remember in film school, like people getting on me about continuity and like, oh, it's so important. Like you got to make sure that he's holding the cup in the right hand and that it's at the right level when you cut from the blah, blah, blah. And then I watched Goodfellas, and there's like literally a scene with Paul Sorvino, rest in peace, just died recently, sadly. He's got a sausage like on a stick or like on a fork. And then they cut to a different angle and the sausage isn't there. It's just gone. Like, you know, and it's like in the middle of the take. And it's just like, I never noticed that watching it like 10 times. And then like when I like sit and look at it like critically, then I finally see it. And it just doesn't matter. It just, Scorsese knows it doesn't matter. It's like he cut to that shot because that's the best performance that
you cut on emotion. So, yeah, you cut for emotion. Yeah, at any of these circumstances, if they're paying attention to the cut, then you failed as a storyteller. So ultimately, it doesn't matter as long as you're doing a good job telling the story. But you just cover it up with a little makeup. That's all you do.
Yeah. I think for us as genre filmmakers too, it's like the lighting's going to be dark and moody. Yeah. So like things like that you may not even notice anyways. And then, you know, at least in my case, like for my last movie, like there was very specific face continuity through the movie where he either had a cut or didn't have a cut, you know, or had a beard or no beard. So like we're all worried about continuity in those degrees anyway. So we're kind of ready to like make adjustments on face makeup, you know, no matter what it is. Like if there's some sort of thing that comes up, you know. So I kind of feel like if as long as you aren't making a movie with a 2-person crew or a 3-person crew, like you probably have a makeup artist who's probably going to be able to solve this problem for you. And then, you know, then with lighting and favoring angles, yeah, you're going to be good.
I think that's a good question, but I would count, because Eric listens to these episodes. I would love to know if there's a trick, if there was something that we're missing here. And then also, like, I think he should make it harder on us. That seemed too easy.
Way too easy. I think I was expecting it to be much more difficult. When I saw this, I think I immediately was like, yeah, favor the other side and makeup. And I was like, and then once I said makeup in my head, I was like, oh yeah, makeup. That's what they do. They cover up blemishes and scars, and people have zits all the time. Do you see them on the screen? Not usually, because there's a makeup artist.
Or the CG, right? Like the beauty VFX work that's done, but that's like, I'm never going to have the budget. Have you? I'm never going to have the budget for beauty VFX.
If you need it, Liz, just whistle. I'll help you out.
Wow, cool.
As long as it's not too crazy, it's actually pretty easy. So.
All right, so this is from Corey Thibert, or Thibert, Thibert. Corey's lovely. We've talked to Corey before, or at least I have.
Yeah, we love Corey.
Big fan. Corey writes, hello, Alrik and Liz. I've been listening to the podcast as usual, and you mentioned being open to answering emails. I've been a long-time listener, and you two were very nice to have me be a part of your short segment, a really low-budget, simple short titled Please. Here's the question. I just completed production in a micro-budget feature film I directed, wrote, self-produced, titled Midlife. Let's pause for a second. Congratulations, Corey. That's huge. Well done. Back to email. I am heading into post-production, which will take as long as it needs to, but I'm already afraid of the distribution/film festival phase. At what point would you suggest having a solid plan for distribution/self-distribution? I'm editing the film as well, so on top of working a day job and raising a toddler, my time is limited. Oof. I feel like I can cross the bridge when I get there, but I do not want to overlook anything major. Can you recommend at least one thing I absolutely need to not overlook at this phase in the process? And just for everyone else, Corey gave us some additional context, but we'll just keep that off the record at the moment. Alrik, what would you recommend?
Well, there's so many things to keep in mind in this stage of the process. The thing that I would say, I don't know who's doing sound for him or if there is a sound plan or whatever, but if you do have a sound mixer, make sure that they do an M&E track for you and that you don't ignore that part, because if you do and you do get some sort of foreign distribution, they're going to ask for an M&E track, and most domestic will probably ask for it too, and it's such a pain in the ass to do it yourself, and it costs a lot of money to hire somebody to do it after the fact. So if you are working with the sound mixer, make sure that they are providing an M&E track for you when you're doing your post sound. As for the distribution itself, film festivals are super important, I think. I mean, you could not go the film festival route and try to find a distributor directly, but I feel like doing that, unless you have stars in your movie, is very hard. So I feel like basically just trying to get into the best film festival that you possibly can and leverage that, I think, would be what you should be focusing on. And then not submitting your film to film festivals until it's completely done. It's got to be perfect, the best it could ever be, sound, color, everything done, and then submit it. And if it takes an extra year, if you miss this year's festival submissions because you wanted to make one more change, just wait. Even if it just sits on your computer for 8 months, just wait. You'll thank yourself later. It's much, much, much better. Liz, what do you think?
I get these questions a lot, right? Because my job is a distribution consultant, and I do some development coaching for filmmakers, and also I do sales. So I rep films to distributors and to platforms. And I would say, I think it's always really important to have an iterative plan, a plan that can change, that could pivot based off of how your film is being received. So if you submit your film to film festivals and you time it, so you submit to the best film festivals first, and then you kind of tier it downwards from there, you're going to know, are you an in-demand title? Are you a top tier festival film? Or are you kind of what I am, which is a regional filmmaker, regional film festival filmmaker? Or are you, a specialty niche audience filmmaker? You're going to know by how the festivals receive you. And that plan, that distribution plan, has to pivot based off of demand. So, if you are in demand at film festivals, maybe you extend your run, and maybe you submit to more, and maybe you charge screening fees, and maybe you collect email addresses, or whatever it is. You make the most out of your film festival run. And if you're not in demand, maybe you cut your losses, and maybe you try to find a sales rep, a producer's rep, a sales agent, or you go to distributors directly. I would say, as a sales rep, a non-traditional sales rep, I like to go to distributors with a trailer and with something I call a sell sheet, which is basically a resume for the film that breaks down what's marketable about the film, what's commercial, how would the distributor sell it? I'm doing the work for them. But I would say distributors have every reason to say no to you, especially if you're not coming with a sales agent or a high profile sales agent or a fancy laurel. And so you need to give them reasons for them to say yes to you. what else? So trailer, key art, those are things that are important. You don't always have to create them before you have a distributor, but sometimes it could be a good idea to do it. And then, I would say making sure you're submitting to film festivals in a way that you're not having to reject a film festival to wait for a yes or a no from another film festival. And we talk about that a lot. And I've done that mistake with Oxford Film Festival and Melanie Adlington, and Alrik has done it too. And it gets really uncomfortable and awkward when you're battling between premieres and trying to figure out what your festival potential is. Sometimes we make I will say, I talked about this before. There's something called Filmmaker Delusion. Filmmaker Delusion is like the conviction you have in order to convince you to make the film in the first place, right? It's good, it's confidence. But sometimes Filmmaker Delusion can influence you to make bad decisions where you're waiting 6 months to hear from Sundance when you're more of a Nashville Film Festival kind of film. And so what you need to do is properly assess what really are the legs of your film so that you don't waste time and you don't wait forever based off of an unlikely opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say about that is I submitted to Dances with Films and to Screamfest, and Dances with Films is, right before Screamfest. Screamfest plays in the same theater that Dances plays at, and Screamfest will not show your movie if it's not a premiere, basically, for the most part. And especially if it plays at Dances. So basically, I got into Dances and I had to decide, do I go with Dances or do I wait with the hope that I get into Screamfest? And I basically just made the decision that, you know what, just go with Dances. Like, Dances is great. The chances of me getting to Screamfest are a flip of the coin. I don't have any connections, and I just did it. But I'll never know. Would I have gotten to Screamfest? Maybe I would have. I don't know. But those are the kind of tough decisions you have to make sometimes. And I think if you do what Liz says and pick the right film festivals, that if I really wanted to be a Screamfest premiere and I didn't really care about, that was the goal that above all, then I would have just not submitted to Dances, just submit only to Screamfest and then just wait. And if I got a no, then hit up Dances next year at the end of my run,
Yeah. Or you can always reach out to Screamfest and you could always say, look, you're my top priority, but I got into this other film festival. Is there any way you can give me some intel about where my film stands? Right?
I did that and they were like, nah, you have to wait. We'll make our final decisions, on this date. I was like, okay, fine.
Well, I do want to share something because I shared it on Twitter and I think it might be interesting just to acknowledge it. Maybe it's a conversation for another show, but for my short film, which we submitted to 30 film festivals, I've gotten into 4. I've been rejected by 3. And of the 4 that we gotten into, we got a submission waiver for 2 of them and we had a connection for the 3rd. Screamfest was the only film that we had no connection to, no lobbying, no submission waiver, and got in. But all 3 other film festivals, I knew someone or someone knew someone, and there was lobbying and there was a relationship there. So I just want to acknowledge that everything we're talking about, film festivals, curation, trust programmers, curation does happen, but who you know and who can lobby on your behalf really, really does make a difference. And so if you're thinking about film festivals, publicists sometimes do film festival lobbying. I sometimes do film festival lobbying. The Film Collaborative does film festival lobbying. The festival agency does film festival lobbying. There are people who can support your film festival run if that's actually what you want to do. I think some people don't know that it's a profession to help you in this field. Yeah,
true. I do want to say that it's pretty cool that Screamfest invited you without any kind of connection or anything, because that's the true my film has actually got merit, when you just randomly get brought into a film festival. So
right, well, thank you. I will say Negative Liz is in my mind right now, and I'm saying it's I have a 10-minute movie. I'm a female director in the horror space, and
don't do that.
But I think it's actually good for us to do that too, because then when you get rejected, you can use the same kind of logic, right? It's too long and my type of filmmaker is oversaturated in that marketplace or whatever it is. I think it's good not to take things too personally, and no one is actually evaluating whether you're worth anything. They're just evaluating whether that film is appropriate for that film festival at that exact moment.
Yeah. Good point. Well, Corey, I hope this was helpful. If you want more from us, you send us an email and we can write you offline if this wasn't helpful enough. But I feel like Liz's advice was really good. I would just listen to Liz.
We're both
you can
great.
Listen to me just a little bit.
Anyone who's listening could send us a question, comment, or suggestion to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. If you like the show, you can leave us a review on iTunes. You could check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at MMIH Podcast, YouTube at Making Movies is Hard Podcast. We want to shout out the International Screenwriters Association, which is an organization designed to connect writers with filmmakers through everything that they offer, including publishing your logline to a network of industry professionals. They have courses, they have contests. Head on over to www.networkisa.org. Thank you to Miguel Faus for coming on the show. Thanks to Chase Crawford for introducing us to Miguel and setting up this interview. Always thank you to our fantastic editor, Jeff Freimuth, for doing the editing. Our wonderful producer, Eric Thomas, for being awesome. Thanks to all of you for listening, and talk to you next week.
Besides not forgetting to sleep, the other thing you should not forget to do is go to our Patreon. Oh my God, I almost nailed it.
That was good, though. That was a good episode.
I'll try it again.